Destination Uri, the morning programme. You are enormously welcome. I'm Rowan Hand and this is Frances Quinn. Frances Quinn is a storyteller par excellence, and she has her Armagh folk tales with her in the studio today. Are there many folk tales of Armagh and in Armagh?
Armagh is so rich in folk tales. I mean, it's incredibly rich. If you take the Navan Fort and the whole Cuchulainn saga, Conor MacNessa, that whole area is so rich. But as well as that, you've got, I mean, I found when I was doing the book that I drew very much on people like T.G.F. Patterson, who was the curator of the County Museum. Armagh was the first county museum in Ireland.
Wow.
And Patterson, and on the other hand, Michael J. Murphy from
for goodness sake,
South
how could
Armagh.
you go wrong?
Yeah, and it was, what I thought was so interesting was that both those men left school about the age of 14.
Yeah.
And went on to do amazing things. I mean, Michael J. Murphy wrote so much, novels, stories, plays, and he had a play on in the Abbey and in the West End, I believe. And then Patterson, on the other hand, he went into a grocery shop in Portadown, worked there, served his time there, and then went on. He was always interested in old things, you know, he was an antiquarian. And then he went on, he became curator of the museum, he went on to the Irish Academy, he was accepted in the Irish Academy, and just
See, this is a story,
people.
if you never do anything else, if you never write another book, this story you should tell to young people who become depressed and suicidal over exam results, you know.
Ah, yeah, there's just so much emphasis today. But that was part of my inspiration. Like, I dedicated the book to my father and my brother, and my father didn't have much of an education at all, and I think there was so much emphasis in our family on education, education, that we undervalued what he had to offer. And I think that happens so often, that people have a tremendous knowledge of the countryside, of stories, and if the whole emphasis is on the academic side of education, that goes neglected. And it is so worthwhile, in my opinion, anyway.
At the other end of the spectrum, your opinion is hugely valued, I tell you. But at the other end of the spectrum, you were telling me that in the research for the book, the older gentlemen and ladies that you met, people in their 90s perhaps, they were much more impressive than those who might have been younger.
Well, in the sense that I thought it was kind of funny, like someone said, you know, nobody left my generation now. And I said, what age are you? Because they were very fresh-faced. Oh, I'm 60 now.
How I'd love to be 60 now.
And I was telling one of the men who's 96, and he said, well, he says, do you know, I know a man here, and he was 99, and somebody sent him a card for the 100th birthday.
Wow.
Oh, he says, he was very offended.
I think the Bible got it wrong when they talked in terms of an allotted span of 70. Because 100 is the new 70 perhaps, and that's the way it should be. People are thinking longer and better. So the tales that you tell, it's one thing to gather and garner information and to record it and to type it and transcribe it. But I rather think you have to have a certain personality to wear the cloak of antiquity and antique literature easily. Otherwise it just comes out as a laundry list of facts.
Yeah, I suppose so, but on the other hand, I wouldn't be a fan of purple prose, and a lot of people who write folk tales, they hype them up and try to make them really exciting and dynamic. And if you go back to the old translations from the Irish, they are far better, in my opinion. Like, they're really spare, powerful, strong stuff. They're just amazing. I found that when I did a CD of the Cuchulainn saga, not the whole town Cuchulainn, not all the battles and that, but I put it into an artificial form of his life story. And when I went back to the older versions, they were far, far better. You know, you wonder. In
the sense of simplicity of storytelling.
Yeah, they're honed away, and somehow the stark skeleton of the story, the way they put it in, like in Old Irish, it's just so much more powerful than the artificial hype.
I remember, this is probably touching on that, I remember well, a famous writer saying to me when I was starting off in the business 50 years ago, and he said to me, "Young man, I've read your stuff. I suggest to you, stand naked as a Grecian statue. Cut, cut, and cut again." That's what you're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah. The journey to the town, you talked about the town there and the bull and Maeve coming up. I have this notion she would have been wasting her time coming up to find a bull. And I reckon what she was coming up to do was to conquer Cooley. And the bull of Cooley is the mountain there, that great Slieve Foy Massif. And if you look at Slieve Foy in a certain light from a certain angle, you can actually almost see a bull lying down. And there it is. Is that completely mad?
No, that's very interesting that you said that. I mean,
but why would she come?
On the one hand,
why would she come up all that distance for a cow? She needed something more to bring her armies and go. Let's go to war, you know.
I suppose on the one hand, the cattle were the currency of the time, and a bull and a prize bull would have been incredible richness.
Maybe.
But I take your point because I was looking at the bull's track in Armagh, and that's supposed to be connected to Patrick trying to build his church in Armagh Braig, which is just outside Armagh, and the bull is supposed to have come and destroyed the church every night and then leapt over the countryside and left its mark in a few different places like the bull's track. And it's a famous spot. Well, the story sounds a bit incredible, but actually Dahi O'Hogan, who died recently, tremendous man, brilliant man, he suggested in a book, The Sacred Isle, that the bull represented the pre-Christian, you know, the other religion that existed at the time, that the bull represented their resistance to the new Christianity coming in, which is more
you can actually see
the symbolic side.
Yeah, I just keep thinking symbolism was there in some form. Now, it's an impossible question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You're the lady who did the study, who wrote the book. The greatest story within the book, the greatest discovery you made about the folkloric nature and atmosphere of Armagh?
Oh, that is a very difficult question.
You can answer it, though.
I don't know what I discovered. I mean, the place, locality, I just think locality is so important to people. Maybe it's not important to everybody, but where you were reared is so significant, just the landscape around you, and it has such power. I can't think that there was one particular thing that I discovered. Maybe if I thought long enough about
would,
it,
but
I'd come up with something.
But there's a joyousness of belonging. Is that what we're talking about? A joyfulness about being part of the place, part of the canvas, part of the weft and web of the of the community.
Well, do you know, just when you said something sprang into my mind, it was Sean O'Boyle, who lived in Armagh.
Dear bless him. And you Sean Senior, the musician, the father of the boys.
Well, I had the launch at the Navan Fort of this book, the initial launch, and I'm in Newry on next Tuesday.
Hey, whereabouts? The library?
In the library at
That's Tuesday. You'll be on our programme on Monday. This will go out Monday. That's today for your point. You'll be live on Monday. So the library tomorrow, that's where you'll find this lady.
At 6:30.
Half past 6 in the evening.
Very awkward time. And I'll be telling some stories and reading some, and there'll be a bit of music.
But I interrupted you there.
Yeah. Shan, I came across in Folk Life Journal a little bit that Shan had collected and put in, and at the launch I asked his son Cathal.
Cathal, how is he?
Yeah, he's fine.
Yeah, I stayed in digs with them all in Belfast 50 years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, and Colin was there as well. Colin went to University in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
Great flautist.
Was he?
Oh,
I didn't even know that. They're
Great
all
fellow.
musical,
Of course
definitely,
they are, yeah.
But they were friendly with my older brothers. And Cathal was there, and I said, Cathal, would you tell that little bit about, and it was about this man from was it Camla? Oh my goodness, I can't remember where
Possibly
it was.
Camla.
Was it? No, it wasn't Camla. It was, but it begins with a C, and I always get
Cregan?
words.
No. Hey.
He'll kill me.
Okay, go forward from this point.
Anyway, he was out in Canada, and he was in the hills, and he came across a bear.
Yes.
And he fought with the bear. They wrestled, or as Cathal said, wrestled
Wrestled with the bear.
for hours and hours, because he was all on his own. He had nothing, nobody to help him, and it looked like he was a goner. But in the end, the bear was down. Oh. And he put his foot on the bear, and if only I could remember the townland, I'd be killed for this. And I'll say Kamla, it wasn't Kamla.
No,
but he said, he put his foot in the bear and he said, Kamla for wrestling. It's just such a ludicrous story, but it shows how much part, how much the landscape you're brought up in is significant.
When you say that, I was born in number 5 Mary Street in Newry, a little townhouse, born in the top room, the front room. The head of the bed was between 2 sash windows. There was an aspidistra pot and plant on the left window that looked out onto the street. But I remember still going to the front door of that house on a winter's evening and looking down the street towards the Albert Basin, and you'd see the fog come rolling in from the ocean and right up the back of the houses on the other and come over, and you could see the green lights of the basin through the fog, the refractive qualities of the fog were doing this. This is a vision that stays with me. It's the kind of thing you're talking about, that part and parcel of a place that makes you feel, this is where I want to be, this is where I was. This is, in some measure, what made me what I am.
Yeah.
That's
a real Dickensian image.
It's very Dickensian. I'm glad you see it that way, because that's what always struck me as Dickensian, So what do you do when you're not writing? What do you do seriously in life?
Well, I do storytelling, and I do acting.
Yeah.
And I went back to university there, which kind of took me out of the loop for a number of years, and took me in a totally different direction.
And what did you study at university?
Well, I was being asked to do some work in Irish, in both in acting and in storytelling.
Wow.
So I went back to do a quick degree in Irish, but I happened to take Spanish.
I love the way you say that. Quick degree in Irish and happened to take Spanish.
Happened to take Spanish in first year, which involved doing a year abroad, which I did in Madrid. And then, because I hadn't done Spanish at school, I felt that my Spanish level was pretty woeful. And I had been teaching English in Madrid, which isn't the best way to learn Spanish. So I went back for another session. It's not a full year, it's like a 7-month stint when you're in a school, in a secondary school.
Yes, yeah.
So I ended up spending the bulk of 2 years in Madrid.
What a hardship for you.
I know, it was a dreadful hardship. It was wonderful, though. It really was. It was amazing. It was great to get an insight into another culture.
Yeah.
You know how you do your quick visits to places,
but
and to actually live there, live with Spanish people. You pick up all the subtleties that you miss as a tourist.
But I would imagine, I've only met you half an hour ago, but I would imagine you absorbed the niceties of culture and the kind of nuances of culture very, very quickly. It's in your nature.
It's hard, but it's hard enough to suss
but you're
them
open
out.
to it, I think.
Oh, I'm absolutely open to it. Yeah, it was something I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it was just brilliant. But it kind of took me on a different path, and I tried to link it in, but they're not really tuned in to linking in for mature students in the university to try and tap into what they have already done. They're so used to dealing with young people and the 19, 20-year-olds in your future, rather than linking in what you already do and what you've already achieved.
They haven't even got on the learning curve of that kind of thought process.
Well, maybe they're doing it, or maybe in some faculties they do it. But I did a mini thesis on storytelling in Madrid, so I tried.
How do you tell a good story?
How do you tell a good story?
Give me a 30, no, I'll give you a better time. Give me a 60-second seminar on how I should tell a story.
Oh, I'm sure you have no bother telling stories.
Tell me now. How do I do it?
No, not at all. Everybody does. Everybody tells in their own way. And, I don't believe in any kind of artificiality. I just believe in people
What do you say to a fellow or a girl who says, oh gosh, I have writer's block?
Writer's block?
What is it? scribble away.
I thought I'd go out of my mind writing that book, because it wasn't me at all sitting at a table for 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours or more. I thought that was very, very difficult, and I have a much better idea now how to go about writing a book, but it takes an incredible amount of organisation, and I now have a tremendous respect for people who write books. I swore I would never be critical ever again in my life that anybody who could put together 60,000 words, even if it was complete rubbish, I had a new respect for them.
But the other thing you haven't mentioned that you need when writing a book, you need a huge confidence. Because at the beginning, the middle, and the end, you're saying to yourself, oh, there is a voice somewhere in your head competing for attention that says, this is no good. I should stop.
Yes.
Why would I do this?
Well,
you know?
I think once you've written a book, it's probably a lot easier.
Yeah.
But if you've never written a book before, there's always that underlying rising panic that maybe I can't write a book after all.
Absolutely.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
That old voice from childhood, who do you think you are?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The other thing, of course, Francis, is, I suspect, that how do you know when it's finished? And you keep going back to it, and you keep a wee bit more. I'll read it again. And you reach a point, if you don't deal with it, that your head is going round and you don't know where you are.
Yeah.
Sign it off, finish it, be done with it.
That's true, but it's really hard to be satisfied with what, especially when it's, I was using a lot of different tales, and of course you could have done a thesis on one of them and really researched one to the bitter end and referenced, and I was so aware that I wasn't doing like academic referencing during it, but then the publisher made the point that not everybody wants to read that kind of thing.
That's right,
so
absolutely.
I tried to make it as representative of Armagh, the county Armagh, as I possibly could, of all kinds of levels of society, and at the same time to make it feasible to read for people. Like in the legends, myths and legends are at the beginning.
Have you a short piece you could read for us now to give us an example of this?
Oh gosh.
Just short, just a couple of paragraphs. Because people will actually hear more of it on the Tuesday night at the library, of course, at 6:30.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hear just a couple of paragraphs, or a paragraph.
Well, I could read you a very short piece of Michael J. Murphy.
Yep,
Okay. Could I do that?
Please do.
I don't know if you have enough time, though. It's about Redmond O'Hanlon. And what I did was I might occasionally tell the story briefly and then say, here's what it's like colloquially, because I tried to use colloquial language.
Let's try that.
So it's not all like this, but I've got
We have
extras.
about another 5 minutes, you see, so you can put it into that context.
Well,
you and I still have to talk more.
It's Redmond O'Hanlon, and he was the famous highwayman from South Armagh. He was born about 1640.
You will forgive me, I'm taking up my enjoyment stance, closing my eyes.
That's all right, you can have your nap now.
Oh, I'm not napping, I'm listening.
So there's this story about nobody could get the better of O'Hanlon. Nobody could get the better.
I knew an O'Hanlon like that, God rest him today, Paddy. He was a great man.
Right.
Sorry, on you go.
Right, I hope this explains itself. Many a time, this is from Michael J. Murphy now, a story he collected.
Okay.
Many a time Redmond O'Hanlon held up a coach on the road over at the Gap of the North, and only himself in it. And of course, I had to put in alone in brackets for an English audience.
That's a kind of an Irishism almost in the linguistically.
Only himself in it.
Yeah, that's a kind of...
He and the Stígham.
Aye.
And it'd be guarded with soldiers. He'd have heads of cabbage in the hedge and hats on them, and let on they were his men. But a wee servant boy in Dundalk tricked him. This lad was hired with a big Dundalk merchant, and the merchant had to collect a debt in gold in Uri. But he was afeard of O'Hanlon robbing him.
Afeard.
No one would face to go for fear of Redmond, and the wee servant boy said he would go. Good man, says the merchant, and I'll get you the fastest horse in the stable. Oh, I don't want the fastest horse, says the wee codger. But give me the worst owl horse you can lay your hands on, and I'll want no pistol. Well, I couldn't understand why he wanted an old done slow horse and wouldn't tell them. But he guaranteed the merchant that he'd have the gold back with him safe and sound. I'll see and I'll make it worth your while, says the merchant. It's a bargain. Off the wee codger sets sailing the old horse. And of course, somewhere halfway, he meets this fine-looking gentleman, well-dressed and riding a very fine horse. Good day, me boy, says the gentleman. Good day, sir, says the boy. Where are you going? Asks the gentleman. I'm going as far as Newry, says the boy, to lift a debt in gold from my master, and I'm heart afeard of meeting Redmond O'Hanlon. Don't be a bit afeard, says the gentleman. I'll be here when you're coming back, and I'll see you come to no harm. And of course, who hell was it? Only Redmond O'Hanlon himself. Well, the boy rode on, and one way or another reached Newry and got the debt in gold in a wee sack or satchel. But he changed one of the sovereigns and said he wanted it all in small coppers. He ties it, he puts the satchel of sovereigns in under the saddle and hangs the sack of coppers on the saddle, mounts up and away back for Dundalk. Well, when he come to the place, there was a wood there along the road. Here he meets the same gentleman sitting waiting on his fine horse. Well, says he, did you do your job? I did, says the boy. And where's the gold? I have it here with me, says the boy. Then, says Redmond, your money or your life. I'm Redmond O'Hanlon, hand it over. Well, says the boy, I never believed in handing money to anyone in my life. And he throws it, and he says, go and pick it up. And he whipped the bag of coppers off the saddle and fires it into the wood. Redmond laughed, got down off his fine horse and away into the wood to get the sack. And then off the servant, off the old horse, takes the bag from under the saddle, leaps on Redmond's fine horse and away, galloping like mad for Dundalk. And of course, Redmond hadn't a hope in hell of overtaking and catching him on the old horse.
That's fantastic. Thank you very,
So
very
that's
much.
just an example of an
It's
extract
lovely.
that I've used.
Is it an extract or have you worked it?
Oh no, that's pure
Yeah,
Michael
yeah,
J.
good stuff.
And I've talked about O'Hanlon then
Yeah.
before that and told other stories.
Right. Let's remind the people where they see you, and it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday in the library at 6:30, and there'll be a cup of tea and stories.
Tuesday.
Bit of music.
The library, 6:30, 6:30. The library, Tuesday, middle of Newry. Stories, cup of tea, the whole lot. Thanks for coming in. That's Frances
very much,
Quinn, Armagh Folk Tales, and it's in the shops now, is it? Yeah.
Well,
It is.
it's
The
certainly
History
in the shops
Press,
in Armagh.
Ireland.
It's in places like
It's a lovely-
Eason's.
Yeah, it's a lovely feel to it. It's a nice publication, you know.
It was their
And it's very booky.
Their person did the illustration on the front. I did the ones inside.
Yeah. That's good. There's one. Hey, come. Oh, look, that's Armagh, of course. The two
That's
cathedrals.
the two cathedrals, but
Yeah.
actually I didn't realise that I would have had to emphasise I put eyes on them,
Wow, indeed
looking
you
at
did.
looking
Indeed
at
you
each other,
did.
but that's not so obvious.
No, but it is there. It is very much so. Yeah.
I wasn't sure how they'd come
But there's
out.
a sort of a growl on the face of the establishment church, the Church of England, the Church of Ireland, the Anglicans. Look at the growl. You see the growl that you put on them.
Well, no, that's in the window. That's the window.
I know
but
it is,
they
but
do
it
look
looks
like
it. It
faces,
is
don't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I thought it was quite, they're on two opposite hills,
Absolutely, yeah.
but they have a good relationship now.
Well, that's the story of good neighbourliness.
Yeah,
keep a good fence, keep a city between you, one on the left, the other on the right.
Ah,
You'll be
well, no,
always all
I
right.
think there's a lot of cooperation
There is
now,
actually.
whereas there
Of course
used to
there
be
is.
in the past.
No, the Church of Ireland and the Catholics were always just a whisper apart anyway. So
Is that right?
Oh, aye, they're getting on fine, I think. God bless you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Take care. It's lovely
Thank
seeing
you, Ron.
Take care. Bye-bye.